back to show you a cooking video. I know I do exercise videos in my blue jeans, cooking videos in my workout clothes. I'm spontaneous, that's what it is. So I was doing something else and it was time to make this video. This is another winter soup video. Last year the butternut squash soup and the creamy cauliflower soup were really popular. Now I have a recipe that I've modified only slightly, which is another winter soup. Acorn squash is the main ingredient, and for some reason my acorn squash video is my most popular YouTube video. I don't know why, but anyways, I think it has something to do with me trying to cut the acorn squash in half and bake it. I did that yesterday with this recipe only because my video camera crashed on me yesterday and I couldn't go on until I figured out how to fix it by watching another YouTube video. How cool is that? Anyway, yesterday I took this whole acorn squash and it was like this. I cut it in half. I put it on a baking sheet on foil, upside down. I baked it about an hour until when I opened the oven. Of course I had on my gloves, but I could smush the top. So usually you would bake it, let it cool a little bit, and then scrape out the flesh. So I'm going to scrape out the flesh off camera. And maybe since it's cold, I can just peel the skin off as opposed to doing the scraping. But I'm going to get all the meat out of this and get rid of the skin. The other ingredients are an onion, but I'm only going to use half, chopped. An apple, peeled, cored, and chopped. I wish I didn't have to peel it, but probably you should because it'll, you know, the texture. Normally I would not peel an apple. And leeks, just one, and just the white part, so, you know, probably that much. And vegetable broth. There are no other spices. You can use salt and pepper, and if you want to, when you serve it, you can serve it with a bit of mint flakes or sprig on top. I didn't have any, and I wasn't going to spend that kind of money on something just to put it on top of a soup or to make a video. And I know that some of us are able to buy the premium brands of things, and money isn't an issue. Some of us, money's a big issue, and I want these videos and these recipes to be modifiable or usable for everybody. So if I'm talking about saving money, there's a reason for that. So if you have more money to spend, I don't hold that against you at all. I think that's awesome. And if you have less money to spend, I'm trying to work with you. And I want you to be able to change your own recipes too, so you might get an idea of watching one of these that works with something that you cook, like the simmer fry stuff. So I'm going to do my prep work off camera, then we're going to saute some of this stuff, and then we add the acorn squash, and then we add the broth, mix it up. I'm going to probably whisk it while it's heating, and then afterwards I might use this food processor. You might have seen me use it before. This is all I have, this little mixer. If you have a blender, you can do that. You want it to be the consistency you like. The only other thing I was going to say is I don't use leeks often, and ironically, you know, because I'm all about the more food per calorie thing that you can get, leeks have more calories than acorn squash, which amazed me, per gram. And I thought, what's so great about a leek? Why do I even need to put it in this recipe? And I looked it up, and for a vegetable, it has a good amount of vitamin C, potassium, and iron. A vegetable with iron. Well, I mean, spinach has iron too, so I guess it's in that category, but so it packs a powerful punch, so it's not just adding calories like sugar does for no apparent reason. Alright, let me cut off the camera and get to work, and I'll be back with you soon. Oh, otherwise, you'd want to bake your acorn squash, and you can do some of this prep work afterwards, but it's going to take a good hour, probably, for your squash to bake. Okay, I've completed my prep work, and I've got my pan heating medium-high. I'm going to start simmer frying in a second. Simmer fry the onions and the leeks together for a few minutes, and when they're softer, then you add the apple. Cook that for another minute or so. Then you add the acorn squash and the broth, and cook it for a while to the consistency you like. I'll look at the directions to give you more on that, but I want to tell you a few things. Let me go ahead and get this started. So, did I really heat that up too much again? Some things about me will never change. So, I do by weight, but my preferred method of measuring things is weight. When I cook, and I use these measuring cups for your benefit, and I'll explain it in a second. Let me get this started. It smells good. Remember to simmer fry. If the pan starts to dry out is when you add a little bit of water. As that evaporates, you add a little bit more. So, when I say I use weight, I mean I weigh my food. So, a lot of recipes will tell you, or even packages when you buy food, they'll give you like a cup, a half a cup, and the weight by grams usually, sometimes ounces. The weight is the more accurate measure. I learned that from a chef. So if you care to know, 513 grams of my acorn squash, which I'm saying it looks like 2 cups to me. I didn't put this one in a cup. It looks like over 2 cups. 115 grams of the onion, which turned out to be a cup. The chopped leeks ended up being a half a cup, and it looks like the apple is about a cup and a half. But I do things mostly by weight, but for your benefit, because not everybody has a scale or wants to have one. Cup and a half of apple, a medium acorn squash, you saw it, but it looks like about over 2 cups. And I'm using 2 cups, I believe, of the vegetable broth. I've got 1 can there. I have another can if I need it. Remember to wash those lids before you open your canned goods. And then after it's cooked, you decide if you want to blend it, mix it, how much you want to puree it. That's up to you. And the recipe also says that you can add a bit of skim milk at the end if it's too thick, or add more broth, or add water. It's up to you. So in a minute we're going to add the apple. And lower the temperature and cook for about 5 minutes. And then, we're going to add the apple, then we're going to add the squash. Then we're going to lower the heat and cook for about 5 minutes with the lid on. After which we add the broth, bring to a boil, and then simmer for about 30 minutes. So I won't leave the camera on for all of that, obviously, but I'll try to turn it on and off. In the meantime, I think I'm going to have some lunch because I'm starving. So, we simmered this for a few minutes, adding the apple for another minute, adding the squash for 5 minutes with the lid, and then adding the broth for 30 minutes. Add the apple, and remember, oopsie, we're not using oil, and there's absolutely no reason to use it, but we do use the water to help with our simmer frying. So I'm going to let this, actually I might turn it up a little bit more. I'm going to let this cook for a minute or so. Then, as I've said quite a few times, add the squash, let that cook for 5 minutes, add the broth, let that cook for 30. And I'll try to let you see some of those things without necessarily seeing me again. Onion, leek, apple. I'm getting ready to put in the squash now. So this is just the first part. Put it in here, add a little bit more water probably. And this is going to cook for 5 minutes. Alright guys, this is this lower the heat, cover for 5 minutes part before you add the broth. I've added probably over a cup of water because I just felt like it needed to have some moisture. The recipe doesn't call for that. it does say that even though you're simmering it for 5 minutes with the lid on, you should stir it often. So I wanted to let you know that. This is after 5 minutes simmering low with the lid on. Now I'm adding 1 can of Swanson vegetable broth, 100% vegetarian. I don't anticipate needing more liquid. If I do, I will probably use water, or like they said at the end, add a little bit of skim milk. Let me make sure I have that right. Add the broth, cover and bring to a boil over high heat. Reduce the heat to low and simmer for 30 minutes. So it doesn't say exactly if you put the lid back on. So that's a judgment call. I might leave it off. So bring it to a boil, lower the heat, let it cook for 30 minutes, and get it to so that all the veggies are soft, and then you can puree them after, and it's going to thicken up as well. So I'll see you in about 30. Okay, the timer just went off to let me know that it's been simmering over here for 30 minutes. So I'll bring the camera over. It's not as thick as I thought it would be, but it is thicker. It smells pretty good. Mostly I smell the broth. I think my apples are not that tender, so I'm going to let it cook for another 5 minutes. No, I'm going to let it cook for another 10 minutes. And then do the cooling off thing. And then I am going to use this to make it into a soup. I definitely don't need any more broth. But I'll bring the camera over and let you take a look. So I got distracted with my studying, and I think that I cooked it like 20 more minutes, and now it is thick. So I recommend you cook it until it's thick. And that would definitely include leaving a lid off, because that will get some of the water out. So it is much thicker. I might even add a splash of skim milk just to make it a more mellow yellow. And because it's cooked longer and the apples and things have gotten softer, this whisk is doing a good job of pureeing it in a sense. But ow, that's pretty hot. I'll probably still run this in it afterwards, but this video doesn't need to go on and on any longer. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like at this point. Definitely remove the heat. And like I said, I might just add a splash of skim milk. I mean not even like a quarter cup to enhance it. There you go. Nice and creamy. Acorn soup.